We have Mukul Bakhshi from the CGFNS, who made a big announcement on recently, and we're going to be bringing him in to speak about the new announcement for the CGFNS and what that means for international nurses. Hi, Mukul. Welcome.
Hey, Tanya. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's great to see you.
We are excited to have you here. You are a very special, honored guest.
Thanks.
We had a show last week, Mukul, and before we do introductions, just to let you know on the announcement that the CGFNS made, and the new change with the English proficiency exam, and we had, I think it was 80,000 views.
Wow.
On the show last week. So there's a lot of interest in this topic. So we're really excited to have you here today as the first part of our show. And we're going to start off with some introductions. So Mukul, if you want to maybe introduce yourself, and we can start there.
Great. Thank you so much, Tanya. Hello, everyone. My name is Mukul Bakhshi. I am at CGFNS. I've been here for 8 years. First as the director of the Alliance for Ethical International Recruitment Practices, which is the division of CGFNS that ensures that foreign educated health professionals coming to the U.S. are treated fairly and ethically. And that's how I actually got to know Tanya and Connetics, is because they have committed to our code as a certified ethical recruiter. In addition, I'm the Chief of Strategy and Government Affairs at CGFNS, which is how I've been involved with these exciting changes on English language proficiency.
Well, thank you for sharing your background. And as I said, we're very excited to have you on the show. It's the first part of our show today is a continuation from last week because we had so much interest and so many people so excited about this change that was announced from CGFNS. And I see we have lots of viewers that are putting their names in the chat. So if you are joining us today, please put into the chat where you are and where you're watching from. And if you have any questions from Mukul. So I see we have Renzi saying hi, Arlene's from Jamaica, Beatrice is saying long live Connetics. Thank you, Beatrice. Arun is saying hi. Arun is an Indian candidate looking to apply. Arun, we're going to speak about that. Beatrice, Laura is saying hi. Lotzi from Nigeria, many people watching from all over the world. So thank you for joining us, everybody. If you have questions from Mukul about the CGFNS change, bringing in the English proficiency, additional English proficiency exams, please go ahead and put that into the chat and I'll be happy to ask that for you. So, Mukul, can you let's take a step back from the announcement. Can you tell our viewers, just if they don't know, I mean, most international nurses will know about the CGFNS, but if somebody's starting this journey and doesn't know what the role is of the CGFNS, can you give us a little bit of background about
Absolutely. So CGFNS has been around since 1977. It was established by the American Nurses Association, the National League for Nursing, and our mission is to help people bring their education or credentials across borders. So if you're coming, we work around the world. We have programs in New Zealand and Canada, but specifically for those of you who are interested in the United States, we have two things. So we have the VisaScreen program, which is something that you need if you need an employment-based visa to come to the U.S. So say you're a nurse and you want to get a visa, an EB3 visa, for example, to be a nurse here, you need a VisaScreen certificate from us. And so we provide that certificate to USCIS that says that you are qualified to be a nurse. So that's the visa piece, the immigration piece. Also, most states, require a report from us if you are looking for a license in that state. So essentially what we do is we validate your competencies, your credentials, so that regulatory bodies like state boards of nursing or U.S. immigration can evaluate your credentials and say, all right, this person has what they need to either be licensed to practice here or to get a visa.
Okay, thanks, Mukul. That's a great explanation, and I think really shares with nurses exactly what the CGFNS does, because there's a lot of confusion. Sometimes people hear a lot of names. There's the VisaScreen and the CES and CVS. So there's just a lot of services and things that the CGFNS offer. So it can be a little bit confusing how that actually fits into an already complex process. It's really an important function that the CGFNS fulfills, though. Can you share with the viewers why the role that the CGFNS plays is so important for U.S. employers?
Absolutely, Tanya. And first, I want to highlight you mentioned the complexity. I know this process is very complex, and that's why I think a lot of healthcare professionals benefit by working with certified ethical recruiters who you have been affirmed and validated, but can help navigate some of these challenges. So I think that's really important. So CGFNS is very important for a variety of reasons. I think we're the ones who are kind of validating those credentials on behalf of all these other stakeholders, like the employers and governments and stuff. So employers want to make sure that you have the visa that allows you to work in the United States and that you can get the license that you need to practice. And so we're the ones that are trusted to kind of serve that gatekeeper role to make sure that they're doing that. Because I mean, there's a lot of complexity when we're looking at transcripts from around the world, licenses from around the world, and so that we're the ones who are trusted to say, all right, these look authentic and these mean what they mean here.
Okay. Thanks, Mukul. So, I mean, really, the way we always explain it to the nurses is kind of how you say it, but from an employer's perspective, it gives them peace of mind.
Absolutely.
Mukul said, CGFNS is the gatekeeper to make sure that you're a real nurse. And I'm sure you are for all our viewers. But if there's someone who's not a real nurse, we don't want that person trying to take care of patients in the United States. Mukul, before we move on to the English proficiency exam, I see we have a question in the chat from Uluwasyun, who's asking, how long does it take to process the visa screen once you apply? I've heard it takes up to 6 months.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. So it varies a lot. Is the short answer. Depends on how long we can get, because obviously credentials have to be sent directly from the primary source. So that certainly can add a couple months. If a credential has to be revalidated, we have to make sure it's authentic. That can also add up additional time. And then just at each stage of the process, especially with so many people coming to the United States now are interested in visas, there's kind of backlogs at different pieces of the process. So I think 6 months is a reasonable estimate, but it certainly could take shorter in good cases, or it could take longer depending on the specifics of what happens with your application.
Okay, so, and that's why we love Onwards and Upwards, because this is where you can come and hear it from the experts, exactly what you need to know about coming to live and work in the United States. Mukul, I have a question that was sent to me in the chat, on the private chat, that says, can I apply for a visa screen if I have not yet passed my IELTS or my English exam, or the other exams that are going to come up now?
Yeah, so you can apply for it at that stage, but you won't be able to receive your visa screen until you pass a qualified English exam. So yeah, you can certainly apply and get that process rolling and get the other credentials sent to them. I actually wouldn't say that's a bad idea, because English is actually in general a quicker credential for us to verify, because we can get that directly digitally from the testing provider, whereas a lot of these other documents have to be sent. So the short answer is yes, you can apply, but you won't be, of course, eligible for a visa screen until you have finished your English language proficiency requirement.
Okay, so that's great advice, everybody. Um, Mukul, you spoke about the long timelines and the backlogs. I see we have a question from Mohammed, who's saying, why do CGFNS take that long? Any plans to make it shorter or a bit quicker?
Yeah, so great point. So this is what keeps me up at night is
Oh, okay.
we want to make sure our goal is to kind of support the global healthcare community, and so we want to make the process as streamlined as possible. There have been a lot of challenges that have prevented us from doing that thus far, but I know we are undergoing a thorough kind of review of our processes to see, are there places that we can streamline pieces of the process without imperiling patient safety, which is obviously our primary objective. So that I think that will happen. I think it'll be over time. I mean, right now the sheer numbers of applications make that an extra challenge. As that normalizes, that might be part of the solution, and also the movement towards digital credentials. Right, if we're able in the future to get more documents through kind of digital means as opposed to paper, snail mail, that could also, I think, reduce the timelines.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to share with everybody who's watching, I was just thinking of the last time that I went to the CGFNS. There's a tremendous amount of work that goes into the organization to try and make the experience as user-friendly and as efficient as possible. So there's a lot of work that Mukul and the team put in to be able to try and help you to expedite the process. I think there was one other question I wanted to check before we move on to the announcement. Oh, there was a question question from Oshin, who's asking, is there any way to premium the VisaScreen process?
There is an expedite process once your documents are in that you can expedite the VisaScreen review. The issue with that though is the biggest barrier is not our evaluation time, which is what you can expedite. It's getting all the documents, and that obviously can't be expedited because we have to actually wait for your schools and licensing authorities to mail. But there is an expedite option if you are, trying to get that very quickly.
Perfect. Okay, so let's move on to the big drum roll, exciting announcement that everyone has been waiting for many, many years. Mukul, I'm just thinking of you and I meeting in San Diego. I don't even know how many years it was. Talking
Three.
about, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could get Pearson PTE and OET into the CGFNS? So, because it's from Connetics USA side, we've been doing this also for a very long time. So tell us about the announcement, what led up to that, and what does this mean for international healthcare workers?
Yeah, absolutely, Tanya. So first, I want to say there actually hasn't been a formal announcement yet. So
Oh, okay.
you'll find it'll be announced on our website August 1st, and
Okay.
you'll see that there. But I definitely wanted. I know some news got out, and Tanya and I have been talking about this for years. She's the first one to kind of alerted me about these issues back in 3.5 years ago now, and so I thought this would be the first place to kind of start to talk about this.
Thank
So
you.
I guess this is the first official news publicly from CGFNS on
You,
this.
you
So
heard it here
I've
on
got to it here. You're
level,
hearing it for
everyone.
first. Absolutely. So we've talked about, and what you just mentioned before, Tanya, about we want to make sure that we're offering as many opportunities as possible for healthcare professionals around the world to kind of meet our processes. And one of those, of course, from people coming from many countries in the world, in fact, most of them, is that you need an English language proficiency exam. So previously, or currently rather, the two exams that were approved were IELTS and TOEFL. And so we've been working with the U.S. government, specifically the HRSA division of the Department of Health and Human Services, on kind of updating the federal regulations to allow for additional English language tests. The idea here is obviously our primary goal is to ensure that people who need to have English language proficiency are able to speak and read English. But we want to provide as many opportunities and avenues to do that. And so that was the goal, was to have that happen. And so effective August 1st, when you go on our website, you'll see that there are multiple options, including Pearson PTE and OET, that you can take to satisfy that requirement.
Okay, perfect. So we got lots of questions. So here goes. So Oluwasan is saying, can a medical technologist also take the OET exam?
Yeah, so great question. So you'll see all this in August. I mean, everything will be on there, the website then. But essentially, a medical technologist will be able to take OET. So there's kind of three categories of testing providers. So one is what I would call like LPNs or vocational nurses. There's one set of requirements for them. Then there's another set of requirements for registered nurses and most of the allied professions, including medical technologists, speech language pathologists, etc. And then there's a third category for specifically physical therapists and occupational therapists. And so there are those three categories. The Everybody except that PT OT category is eligible to take essentially an array of tests, which includes IELTS, TOEFL, Pearson PTE, OET, as well as the Cambridge English and the Michigan English test, and TOEIC.
Okay, so really exciting news, because this gives international healthcare workers choice. It's not just nurses, it's international healthcare workers
Absolutely.
choice. You have to do the English proficiency exam, which, as Mukul said, is a requirement, but it gives you choice on which test to go for. And I would really encourage everybody to also watch the show that we did last week on Onwards and Upwards. You can see it on our Facebook page, on our social media channels, on our website. We had over 80,000 people that watched it. So there's obviously a lot of interest in this, and it's really an education process, because last week what we did is we spoke about just an overview of what the tests entail from a curriculum perspective, as well as from a logistical perspective, like which countries you can write in, and how you go about it and what it costs, those kinds of things. So please make sure to check that out, because there's a lot of information there for you, and we'll be having future shows dealing with a lot of the questions that are going to come up now, is which test is best for me. So for the purposes of this, of today, a segment with Mukul, we're not going to really go into which test is best for you because that really is an individual thing. But we're going to take some of the questions that we see in the chat. So we have a question here from Maria. Maria said, I'm really confused on the CGFNS accepting some states, and then there's some states that accept other tests. How do I make sense of that?
So this is a real challenge, and I understand why it's so complex and difficult. So there's a couple issues here. So I want to clarify and just highlight that specifically on August 1st, CGFNS will be accepting these tests only for VisaScreen purposes. I do expect us to announce later this year acceptance for the state licensure purposes, which is the RCES program, but that will not be in effect yet. So that if you do take one of these tests, you would need to take IELTS and TOEFL if you're going through CGFNS, or to work directly with a state that accepts other scores and then send the scores to them directly. So that's the short answer. The bigger point is that this gets a really important question that you need to figure out early on when you're deciding what test to take. Is that of course the federal government takes all these tests that will be listed on our website. Uh, but each state has its own requirements for English language, and so if you have an idea of where you'll want to practice, you'll want to take a test that is accepted within that state. So currently, I know most states, of course, take IELTS and TOEFL, which are the traditional tests that have been accepted. And I know around 15 states take PTE, a few take OET already. I think that number will go up quite a bit. But if you are kind of on the cusp right now of applying, you'll want to check, hey, I want to make sure I take a test that I can use both for my immigration purposes, but also to get a license to practice.
Okay. And you said something really important there. And I think this is a good way for healthcare workers to think about this English proficiency test and the new announcement and the choices that now come about. You have to take a test for your immigration purposes. So that's kind of like the umbrella, as I would kind of explain it. And then there might be requirements from the specific state that you're going to be working for. So kind of think of it in those two ways. The umbrella, which is the CGFNS, that's for your immigration purposes. And then there's the specific state that you're going to be working in and the requirements thereof. So we're going to be talking a lot more about that. I would encourage everybody, as I said, if you're just joining the show now, to watch the show that we did last week because it gives you a very broad overview of the different tests and what is involved and what they offer. I would also encourage everybody to go to the Connetics USA website and look at the blog that we have on there. You can use the scan for the code there, and it really just looks at the differences with the IELTS, the OET, and the PTE. There's also a lot of articles that we provided in the show last week to share some of the differences and share some of the states where the test can be taken. Okay, so another question that we have from many healthcare workers that are asking if they have taken the Pearson PTE, for example, or the OET before the August 1st announcement, Mukul, can they be given credit for that when they're applying for the VisaScreen?
Absolutely. Great question. And yes is the answer. We will accept scores from within 2 years. So if you apply in August of 2022, when we accept those scores, any scores from from 2 years before in 2020, from August or September of 2020, would be accepted going forward. So you have a 2-year window for any of the tests.
Okay. So that's good news for many healthcare workers if you have already taken that exam. Okay, I'm just looking at the chat. We've got some questions about NCLEX and about Indian nurses. So our team will go into the chat and answer any questions that we're not able to get to today. And I see that we have some specific questions, like Ocean is asking, what is the required score for PTE? Mukul, I don't know if you have that information right now, or if we're waiting for the August 1st announcement for the scores, but I know we did also cover that in the show last week.
Yeah, so the scores have been the great question. So the scores have been announced And you can find them on the HRSA website, on the federal government's website. They'll be on our website on August 1st when we accept them. But for Pearson, it would be a 55 overall with no section under 50. I believe that is the score that would be applicable for that for the Pearson test.
Okay, thank you. Maria has an interesting question. She's saying, I have applied for the VisaScreen 4 months ago and I didn't get the desired score in IELTS. So I want to try OET for the VisaScreen. Can she do that?
Yes. So if as long as her VisaScreen application is valid, which it would be if it was only a few months ago, as of August 1st, we would accept a OET score to meet that standard. If that's what she has. Also to mention, there's a adjustment to some of the score levels too that will be coming out. So even for the traditional tests, I know that we'll be adjusting those scores as well. So you can take a look out for that too.
Okay, and that brings us to the end of the time that Mukul has with us. So we know how busy you are. We are so grateful to have you on the show. It's really an honor to have you on the show.
Yeah.
We hope to have you back many times in the coming weeks.
Yeah.
And before Mukul leaves, I just wanted to share with everybody, please don't forget to check out the blog, the Connetics blog, with some of the differences that we have with the IELTS, the OET, and the PTE. Being here and explaining how things are going to work from August 1st. Going forward, we're going to be having in the Connetics College on our weekly show that thousands of people are now watching. We're going to be also having classes on the OET, on the Pearson PTE, so a lot more coming. Thank you so much, Mukul. It was great to see you.
Absolutely. So I would say thank you, Tanya, and I want to say to all of you, I encourage you to work with firms that are, certified by the Alliance, including Connetics, to do this. This is, as you can tell, a very difficult process in a lot of ways, and we're trying to make it easier. But in the meanwhile, having people who are really experienced and can help guide you through the process can be invaluable in determining your journey to the U.S.
Thank you, Mukul. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
coming on the show, and we look forward to having you on future shows going forward.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you.